We've got a special guest this morning called the Human Whisperer. He's going to teach us how to influence people and be more charismatic. Fox 5 Morning at 8 a.m. starts right now. .41 now. We've all heard of dog and horse whisperers, but have you ever heard of a human whisperer?
Joining us this morning is Stephen Kyle. He's a human behavior expert, speaker, and author of the book, The Human Whisperer. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
We have to ask you first and foremost, how do you do this? What is a human whisperer?
A human whisperer, similar to a dog whisperer or a horse whisperer, all animal whisperers have three things in common, three things that they do. Number one, they have a deep understanding of the psychology of the animal that they're working with. Okay, so it's understanding. Second, they have a connection. There's a bond between the whisperer and the subject. And third, they're able to utilize tools of influence and persuasion to get the animal to comply with various requests. So it's really those three things. It's about understanding, connection, and then ultimately influence.
And so,
so fascinating.
And all of this can translate to humans as well.
Absolutely.
And we should make it clear, we're not talking about some magical kind of thing here.
No. It's not Jedi mind power or anything like that. Absolutely not.
Bummer. We were hoping for that.
Right.
You have a background in the intelligence community.
Correct. I've spent the last 20+ years in the intelligence community, and I've always been fascinated by human behavior and why we do what we do. And my time in the intelligence community has in part given me a chance to explore and look at those questions.
Okay, but you know, obviously dogs, horses can't directly speak to you, but humans can. So how are you human whispering to a person? Like if you're interacting with us, I mean, are you picking up signals from us as far as body language, or how would you hone in on that?
Very good question. The tools are a little bit different between the different types of whisperers, animals versus people, but the overall goals are the same as far as connection, understanding, and influence.
So what advice do you have for folks at home who are trying to convince somebody to do something that they would like them to do? That's what everybody wants to know. What do I do? What are the steps?
Okay, yeah.
Well, convincing somebody to do something, I mean, there's a lot that goes into that. That's more than we probably have time to get into.
Besides if you're a parent, because I said so.
Right.
But one of the best things you can do to influence other people, and this sounds counterintuitive, but here's a simple thing everybody can do. It's about listening. The better a listener you are, the more influential and persuasive you'll be. Now, that doesn't sound intuitive, but here's why that's true. And actually, I can mention the three things that everybody can do to become better listeners. First of all, and it sounds obvious, but these things are harder to do in practice than you might think. First, don't interrupt others. Now, that sounds obvious, because people will think it rude and so forth, but there's a bigger reason why you shouldn't interrupt other people, and that's because they're not listening to what you're saying anyway. As soon as you interrupt them, they're waiting for you to shut up so they can continue their point. They're not listening, and so you're just wasting your effort. Number two, and this is even harder for most people, let others interrupt you. That's very difficult for people. If you really want to be an excellent listener, let others interrupt you. And the same principle applies. If you stop somebody from interrupting you, again, they're not listening to you. And the final tip is, as far as listening, and this is a big one, pause before answering. And the reason is, it creates the idea in the mind of the speaker that you are genuinely hearing them, and you're listening to them, and you're internalizing what's being said.
I want to get to something that you talk about in the book. You talk about charisma.
Absolutely.
And we tend to think of charisma as something that someone has or doesn't have, but you say it's something that we can all develop.
Absolutely. Charisma has been found to be the result of specific nonverbal behaviors for the most part, and anyone can develop a more charismatic you, everyone. And even if you're an introvert, if you're an extrovert, you can become very charismatic. And real quick, charisma is defined as sort of the balance between power, presence, and warmth. These various attributes. And men generally overproject power and underproject warmth. Generally, the average man. The average woman is the opposite, overprojects warmth and underprojects power. So if you have power and warmth in balance, you're going to project a more confident, charismatic persona. And a very quick way that men and women can both do that. For men, a very quick, easy thing to do is smile. Men do not smile enough. Study after study has been shown women smile far more than men. There you go. There you go. See, now that's
He has a great smile. He smiles all the time.
well, he's Mr. Charisma anyway. He doesn't need any of this advice. This is not for Tony. But if men would smile more, they would project more warmth, and then power and warmth would be more in balance.
What about for women then? How do we project power? Yeah. We're always trying to be nice.
Again, there's a lot of ways that I discuss in the book, but one simple way that everybody can incorporate right now is gestures. The more you gesture and do this, the more that takes away from the message. If you're doing this kind of thing all the time. Gesture, of course, and you guys naturally do it. You're on TV. You guys know all that. But for a lot of people that gesture a lot, if you gesture less, it increases your power and authority in a given conversation.
We have to cut it short, unfortunately. For more information, StephenKyle.com. That is spelled correctly, K-E-Y-L. The book is The Human Whisperer. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks so much for having me.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll be right back.